So, before we get into this Endgame spoiler review, I need to just talk to you guys. So recently, I'm just gonna say it, Friday night, my cat, ran away, and we haven't been able to find him. We're still holding out, hope. There have been cats that have come back, a month after they run away, but we don't know where he is. He hasn't come back, and, it's really, really hard for me right now, because, he's my best friend. He's always been my best friend since we got him, 2 years ago, and he's really young, and so I just kind of haven't been able to really think about anything really recently, so I'm just gonna say I need to step down for just a little break. This is by no means goodbye at all, because you guys are way too important to me, and I love YouTube way, way too much, but I do need to take a little short break, and so, yeah, thank you guys so much for understanding. If you want to unsubscribe, you can, but I need to just have this time to kind of deal with this right now, and let's hope he comes back. But anyways, that's not what this video is really about. We're here to talk about some Endgame spoilers. Let's get into it. Alright, so, Endgame. Where do we even begin? First off, there are spoilers in this video. It's a spoiler review. If you haven't seen it, get the heck out and come back later. That's perfectly fine with me. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. But I don't want you to get spoiled, so bye-bye. Now, oh man, the epic, emotional, thrilling conclusion to the first 22 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I truly think it's a masterpiece. Now, that isn't to say it's completely without problems, because I wouldn't say this is an absolutely perfect movie, but it is pretty darn close, and I think I will cherish this for years to come. I've already seen it twice, and I can't wait to see it again. Let's start with that opening scene where we see Hawkeye on the farm with his family, and they turn to dust. This set the mood for the entire movie perfectly. It just roped you in and set the mood and everything, and then it goes into, the Marvel Studios kind of opening, and it was just a perfect choice to start off this movie. Then we see Tony and Nebula on their ship as it's about to run out of oxygen, food, water is running low, and right before they would, die, Captain Marvel saves them and brings them back to the Avengers complex. Now, I definitely was expecting this, and I was surprised that it literally happened within, the first 5 minutes of the movie. That was kind of crazy. I knew it would happen pretty early on, but it was great to see Tony and Nebula, playing some paper football and everything. It was great, and then the Avengers, they get a plan, and they go after Thanos, where he is kind of retired, basically, after decimating half of the planet, and Thor chops his head off, 15 minutes into the movie, which was completely unexpected. I was like, what? Who? How? And that was insane. And you're like, wait a minute, how? What? I don't know what's gonna happen here. And then they cut to black, and 5 years later come up. Now, I do think this time jump was a little bit too long. I think it could have been maybe 2 years, and it would have worked a little better. 5 kind of messes some stuff up in the timeline that they don't fully explain, but in all honesty, I didn't really have a problem with it. We see the Avengers are scattered, Black Widow's trying to keep everything together, who I thought was amazing in this film, and then Ant-Man gets out of the quantum realm and says, hey, time works differently in there. We can do time travel. They run it by Tony, who has a daughter now. She's adorable. She says, I love you 3,000. and she's great. Tony's not really into it, but in his heart, he knows, he kind of has to try something. So he messes around with some stuff using his Tony Stark brain, and boom! Time travel. He figures it out, and this is when the main plot kind of gets going. He shows up at the Avengers complex, and he's like, yo, we can do this, but I have to keep everything that I have. Cap says deal, and they assemble the squad. They go to New Asgard, which I thought was cool, where we get basically the comic relief of the second act in Thor. Now, I wasn't a fan of this, him having a beer gut. I really didn't like that. It was funny at first, but I wish he would have just kept his abs. Like, is that too hard to do? But anyways, they get their plan. They're all going to go back and get the Infinity Stones and use them to bring everybody back. Now, this was a pretty popular theory that they would do, but they did it well, they have this whole kind of assembly, and there they go. We get to revisit old MCU movies, and it really was just a fan service movie, and to be honest, I loved that. I thought it was really cool. So we get kind of technically four separate teams all going after these stones. And the second act, I do feel like some of this drops off a little, but all of it was still very, very entertaining. Whether you're talking about the Battle of New York or going back to Asgard in 2013, Vormir with Black Widow and Hawkeye, which is where we get our first big death in Natasha Romanoff. This was done beautifully, and I thought it made total sense because, she had read in her ledger, and this is kind of what she needed to do to feel like she had owned up to that and kind of completed her story arc perfectly, I thought. And Scarlett Johansson was amazing in this movie. I think it's her best MCU performance. Jeremy Renner was great too. And I love the whole sequence on Vormir, even though some stuff was a little coincidental, but seeing Red Skull again was great. And so, eventually they get all of the stones except the Nebula from 2014, I believe, when she was still evil, comes back instead of their Nebula and allows Thanos to come back through time, and it gets a little bit confusing if you're not super familiar, but I thought they explained it in a pretty great way. And so Hulk snaps his fingers and brings everybody back. It's pretty climactic, and I think they did it well. But then, as soon as they're like, we did it, Thanos comes in, boom, 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 boom. And that was kind of insane. It's like, whoa, we're being thrown in to this third act, which I think is incredible. And that's when we get the final battle. Avengers base is completely destroyed, and so they have to make one last stand. So, Hawkeye's got the gauntlet. He's trying not to let all these creatures get it. Everyone's running around. Rhodey and, Rocket are drowning or something. Hulk's trying to hold it up. It's crazy, but I love it. And we get Cap, Thor, and Iron Man versus 2014 Thanos. This is an amazing fight scene. And then they finally do it. They finally do it. Cap gets Mjolnir. Now, for this to happen, some time travel stuff had to happen. It's a little weird because then a Thor from a timeline would have been without Mjolnir, I guess. But I don't get too caught up in the logistics of it because Cap gets Mjolnir and beats the crap out of Thanos. And it's amazing. I love that fight scene so much. Maybe my favorite comic book fight scene ever in a movie. It was just so awesome. But Thanos finally gains the upper hand, brings his entire army down to Earth because he wants to basically restart life. Now, they took a classic villain tale, but made it work for this Thanos to the point where I don't think it, destroyed his character at all. It made sense. He got too cocky, and I think it worked for his character. And so, that's when we finally get it. All of a sudden, you hear in Cap's earpiece, on your left. And Black Panther walks out, Falcon flies out, every single hero in the galaxy might as well have come out of these portals. It's an amazing scene. They all line up, and, you know, we get the build-up. Ba-nump, 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 ba-na-na-na-na-na. And Cap says, Avengers, assemble. They all charge. Oh, I lost everything. Like, my mind at this scene. It might be my favorite moment in cinema ever. It was that epic, and I loved this whole war. It was a war. It was every Avenger, basically ever, going up against Thanos and his entire army. Some great moments in the fight scene, some funny humor, and at the end of the day, Thanos gets the gauntlet, and he's about to snap his fingers, but, you know, Doctor Strange lets Tony know, hey, this is it. This is our 1 in 14 million. And so Tony snatches the Infinity Stones off of Thanos' gauntlet, and with one of the greatest lines ever, in my opinion, I am Iron Man. All of the bad guys fade to dust. Thanos going last. It is very poetic, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But, you know, the snap takes its effect, and Tony, it was his time. He went out with the greatest sacrifice in the MCU, maybe ever, and he is laid to rest. I was sobbing. I was sobbing during this. It's such an emotional death scene. I still don't think I've fully recovered. He went out like the hero he is. They have this giant funeral, and I think I was crying like the entire last hour, basically. Oh my gosh, it was just so emotional. And Cap brings all of the Infinity Stones back. Now, some stuff there gets questionable, but if you don't think about it too much, it's okay. But he decides he's going to live out a full life with Peggy, gets that final dance, hands the shield over to Sam, and with that, the first saga of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is drawn to a close. It's beautiful, and I love it. This movie is action-packed. The acting is great. The pacing, for the most part, is really solid. Just some plot holes here and there that make you kind of scratch your head. Not everything's perfect, but I love it with all of my heart. I mean, that Avengers Assemble scene, Iron Man snapping his fingers, so many incredible moments that we will look back on as some of the best in the MCU for sure. This really was Endgame. Thank you all so much for watching my spoiler review. I give Endgame a 9.9 out of 10. It's an incredible film, and it's my favorite in the MCU. It might not be the most well-made, but I love it. Thank you guys so much. I love you all 3,000, and I'll see you whenever. Thank you. Peace.